Welcome along to a very, very special off-script podcast. It's a special because we're joined by a footballing legend, former Chelsea captain, former England captain. It's this man.
I just feel like every time there's a set piece, there's going to be a chance. It's Terry's header, and it's in!
Partey, it's in towards Terry! John Terry for Chelsea. The captain, the leader, has equalised for Chelsea.
We are live on Facebook. A very good morning to you for those of you joining us from the UK. A very good afternoon for those of you joining us right here in the United Arab Emirates. And we say a very good afternoon to our very special guest. It is the captain, the legend, the leader. It's John Terry.
Afternoon, guys. How are we doing?
Great to have you in, John. And first and foremost, welcome to our humble abode. You were very complimentary. You're enjoying this place.
Pleasure to be here. It's beautiful. I love Dubai and very impressive here.
And you're here for the Dubai Fitness Challenge as well, of course. We're going to touch on that in just a moment. Dubai, it is a home away from home for you a little bit.
It is actually. We first come here in 99, 2000, just me and my wife, and the kids have kind of been here since they've grown up. So we've probably been here 2-3 times a year. Very fortunate to kind of come to such a beautiful place, but it's definitely our favourite place as a family.
John, you're out here with the Dubai Fitness Challenge, 30 minutes of exercise for 30 straight days. That's the initiative, and it's been very successful in the years that it's been running. Give us an idea of exactly what you're going to be doing in the next couple of days.
Well, I've been down at the football facility this morning, watching the kids play some football. That can be any sport. We're not just talking football here. We're talking cycling, swimming, running, a bit of Zumba as well from my wife going on. So a little bit of everything. But like we say, just important to get out for 30 minutes of exercise a day for 30 days is excellent.
Yeah, you mentioned your wife, Tony, as well. She has written a book about it, about the importance of working with friends and family. I mean, do you carry that mantra into your daily life? Do you work out with the missus on a regular basis?
I did. I kind of retired and thought that was the end of it. I could give up kind of exercising, but she's constantly on the case to me. You know, up, getting the family up out in the gym Sunday mornings, on the bike, on the treadmill, for a walk with the dogs, a little jog with the dogs, that kind of thing. But so she's very active. It's very important as a family as well, because kids nowadays as well, especially around computers and stuff like that, it's important to get them out. Whether that's 30, 40 minutes, an hour a day, it's very important.
When you're in a routine like you had for so many years, John, and you've transitioned into coaching, obviously you're still active in football, but how tough is it to stay fit? Because you see a lot of athletes, I won't name any names, but they retire and they kind of let themselves go a little bit. But it's pretty tough, I would imagine, to keep that routine going.
Yeah, it's very tough because you're probably doing as a player between 5 and 8k a day without even thinking about it. That's just on the football pitch. With gym work as well, it's probably around 10k throughout the day. So when you stop and realise that you've got to go on a 10k run just to sustain the way you're looking, it's quite difficult, and that's why you see a few players ballooning up.
Now, you've not paid me to say this, but you're looking in decent nick, John.
I'm not too bad. I've put on a couple of kilos, but I'm...
Could you still play, you reckon?
I think I could. I still get involved every now and then. If there's a little injury in training or if we're short in numbers, I get involved.
Didn't you score a world-class goal the other day? You posted on your Instagram.
I posted. I did.
A few. I think there was a few.
There was a couple, a little bit of shooting at the end of training, but I still miss it. Obviously, it's the best feeling ever, being a footballer. But I'm on the other side now, and I'm enjoying that side of it as well.
Yeah, let's talk about that. How much are you enjoying Aston Villa and working and learning off of Dean Smith, who, bit of a footballing visionary, did great work at Walsall, carried that through to Brentford, given the job of his dreams at Aston Villa. You enjoying working under him?
I am, actually. He's a really good guy. And my brother used to play for him at Leyton Orient, so there's a connection there. We've known each other. Obviously, I played at Villa for 1 year as well. He's a big Villa fan and obviously done great at Brentford, so he got the opportunity. We kind of spoke and just hit it off straight away as well. So got the same mindset and the same thought process regarding football. So it works well, but I'm learning every single day of him, and it's a real pleasure to be around him.
As we mentioned, you won 15 trophies during your playing career. How did getting Villa back into the Premier League as a feeling of euphoria, how did it compare to winning a trophy?
Yeah, I mean, I missed out as a player, actually. We lost in the final to Fulham the year before. So to have the opportunity, firstly, to go back to the club, and then as a coach to kind of be part of that process is completely different. You feel like you've done nothing. So when all the players are celebrating after the game, I missed it, to be honest, because I was kind of at the forefront of them celebrations and everything else. So I missed that side of it. But as a coach, we was having conversations 10 minutes after the game going, right, signings for next season. It was like, right, move on now. We're in the Premier League. What can we do to now sustain ourselves and be in the Premier League?
How does that feeling change, John, from being a player winning things and a coach winning things. We've talked about it, Robbie and I, on this show, whereby, me growing up, I wanted to bypass a playing career. Not that I was much of a player, I should point out as well, John. I wanted always to be a leader of men, to pull them through battle and win trophies. The feeling, the difference in being successful as a player and a coach, is there a difference there?
Oh, there's a massive difference.
Is there?
Yeah, there's a huge difference. As a player, you feel it's probably the same when you're injured as well. So if you're injured and miss a game, whether that be, I missed the Champions League final. After the game, the lads were, I just didn't feel like not that I didn't win it. I felt part of it because I'd had a process on the build up to the final, but I just didn't feel the same as if I would have as I was playing.
Is that a regret when you look back on that? Obviously, you won it. You've still got the winner's medal. Was that the toughest 90 minutes that you had to sit through because you weren't involved in the heat of the action?
Yeah, a little bit, but also as well, you kind of realise the pressure. So I've obviously missed the penalty in the 2008 one against Man U. Devastated. Like, for me, the most important thing was, in my lifetime, my career, I just wanted the Chelsea fans to experience that and win the Champions League. We'd done that. So whether that was with me or without me, because I'm Chelsea through and through, that's all that matters to me.
How certain were you that Didier was going to score?
1,000,000%. It was out of here.
It was the most nonchalant penalty, wasn't it?
No,
It was one step and just banged it into the bottom left corner. But we're going to talk about Chelsea, of course. We've got to touch a little bit on England as well, because last night, 7-0 winners over Montenegro. 1,000th international match, and you were a big part of England for a long time. What's your impression of this England? And if we compare Gareth Southgate, there's a lot of talk has been about the culture of England and how that's changed. What's your impression looking into that as to how it's changed and why it's changed?
Well, firstly, no Steve Holland, who's a big part of the England setup, and Gareth as well. Obviously played with Gareth at the back end of his career, mine. And just what you hear from the players and what you know of Gareth, he's doing amazing things with the group as well. So pretty much when I was playing and part of the England setup, you kind of go in, you get told what to do, when to do. Even after meetings, you get told whether you played well or didn't. Now he's very inclusive with the group as well. And I think when we're looking at the millennials nowadays, after games, he's kind of having debriefs or getting players to lead these meetings themselves of going, okay, we're playing against these. What's their weaknesses from set plays? And the players then get up and have to watch the videos and dissect it. Where do we feel as players? Because it's okay, you as a manager going, right, this is what I feel. But I think as a group of players, if you're thinking something completely different to the coach, you're going to get nowhere. So he listens to them an awful lot before and after games and likes their input. So that side of it, I really like the way he's coaching and bringing them through. But just very excited as an England fan now.
He was vilified, was Gareth, in some quarters this past week with his handling of the fracas between Raheem Sterling and Joe Gomez in training. Your thoughts? I mean, is it fair that some are actually criticising him for what I believe, and again, I know my opinion doesn't matter in all of this, but I actually thought what he did was very un-British. It was actually quite mature to say, I'm not going to castigate Raheem Sterling. He's still part of my squad, but it's wrong to grab another player, and he's banned for a match. Yeah,
I mean, I would still like Raheem to be part of that game last night. It's a big occasion for him, and he's probably our best player at the moment as well. So as long as it's not a reoccurring incident with him, it's not like he's done it before or if he does it again. I think for me, we're talking about players earning fortunes nowadays. Everyone says players don't care nowadays. It's different. All they care about is the money. You've got two players playing for probably the best two teams in the world at the moment, coming in a day after the game, still caring about it. And you go, I think there's a positive to spin on that. You go, them two best players caring about their football clubs. I hope if we have a disappointing game or result for England, they go away and I want them to have that same feeling. If they've got that, something's right.
Was Gareth damned if he did and damned if he didn't? Because if he hushed it up and it had come out in the press, there would have probably been a lot of articles about maybe his weakness in handling it.
Yeah, I don't think you can hush anything up in England setup. It all gets out, the team gets out and everything. So that's very difficult. I think, listen, they're two grown-ups. Get them alongside each other with you as the manager. And I think they could have dealt with it slightly better for me.
A lot of players came out in the aftermath to say, this is commonplace in football. I've done this with another player. I've done this. Give us an insight, John. You ever been in a wee tussle with a teammate or two?
I've had a few square-ups, on the training pitch. But that's all it is. It's heat at the moment stuff. 2 minutes later, you're in the dressing room and you shake hands. It's completely forgotten. 1,000,000%. No carryovers the following day or an hour later. Completely forgotten. Heat at the moment stuff. It happens. And if you're involved in football, you know it happens.
You were part of the England so-called golden generation. when you look back and reflect on your time at England or with England, do you have regret about how some of those major tournaments were handled and you know, maybe the culture and how it's so different today?
Yeah, probably little bits actually. And when I became England captain, I tried to change a few things with the FA and a little bit just around the camp. And for me, we had some of the best players in the world at the time playing for Man United, Liverpool, Chelsea, and all coming together. And we kind of didn't do what we should have gone on to achieve to do. And for me, that come down to, if I'm at Chelsea and we play on a Saturday and the following Saturday, you don't need to tell John Terry or Frank Lampard or Steven Gerrard or Paul Scholes how to prepare in that week. And I think when we was away with England, we was pretty much, we'd meet up on a Sunday, the game would be the Saturday or the Friday night, and you spend the whole week locked up in a hotel room. And all you're doing is thinking about the game, thinking about the game, thinking about the game. That's not a good place to be. And I try to kind of change things, make things a little bit more relaxed. Like if I was at Chelsea, like I'm saying, on a Tuesday, I'd go and have 9 holes or 18 holes with a couple of lads. And we're in a hotel on the golf course, and we wasn't allowed to play golf on a Tuesday or Wednesday. Really bizarre small things. We wasn't allowed out in the local town to have a coffee. If I'm at Chelsea, I'll go and have a coffee in my local town or pick the kids up from school. We missed all those little bits, I think, of just being ourselves. We was how the public wanted us to be. Like we're in the England camp, we can't do our normal things.
And when you go back to Chelsea on that then, John, and talk to your international teammates, and you'd obviously be picking their brains, what do they do in the weeks leading up to games, whether Portuguese, Germany, Italian, whatever? Yeah. Is that the same for them? Are they locked away, or are they given a little bit more freedom?
The Spanish boys, 100% loads more freedom. Their family can come to the hotel, they can go out and have dinner together, they can go and play golf. They turn up, so if the weather's boiling hot, which it is 9 times out of 10 in Spain, you can go to the game in shorts and flip-flops and a little bit more relaxed. I think we got caught in a process of we have to be this way and we're robots. We're not, we're human beings, and we want to pick the kids up from school. We want to go for a coffee and switch off away from football. Spain was allowed to do that, we wasn't. I'm not saying that was the be-all and end-all why we didn't win anything, but I just think those little details can make a big difference.
And aside from with a club, if you lose a game, you get the chance the next couple of days or the next weekend to put it right. With an international tournament that comes around every 4 years, there's a long time to wait. Yeah. And was there a sense of pressure on you to perform? I'm thinking 2004, 2006, when there was a real expectation that England would win a trophy. Did you feel that within the camp?
Felt the pressures, of course, because obviously you're watching the TV, you're reading the papers on a daily basis as well. I think playing at the top, you have to learn how to handle the pressure. And I think we did as players because we'd done that at club level. It just wasn't meant to be. I don't know why, whether that was formation or we tried to fit players in that maybe didn't fit the formation. I don't know, but certainly underachieved for sure.
Now you're a coach, John. This is the $1 million question that all England fans want answered. How would you have gone about ensuring that Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard can play together?
I would have found a way.
Because it's the one that's thrown out there. They are arguably the two best midfielders the Premier League. And before the Man United fans get in touch, Paul Scholes, Roy Keane, I know there's many that have played in the Premier League, but those two on paper, at the very least, should have been able to play together, and this perpetual kind of notion that they didn't. I mean, your take on it?
We played pretty much 4-4-2 really when I was playing, and you kind of look at it now, you would have loved the Michael Carrick sitting in front of the back four and them two just in front of him, and 3 boys up top. Formations kind of move on. We did try and kind of fit him in. We had Scholesy playing left or Joe Cole playing left, wasn't there? Their natural positions. At times Stevie was wide left. Yeah, it's a difficult one because I don't think there is an answer to it, is there?
Let's talk about Frank, because he's doing a great job. I think the fact that he's been shackled somewhat by the transfer ban, and a lot of people thought that he might struggle in this first season with Chelsea. What's your perception of how he's doing? And is it now conceivable that Chelsea could win the league under Frank?
100%. Frank's done unbelievable since he's come in, and I think the expectation level wasn't there, but I think that's helped him as well. I think with the boys he had on loan at Derby last year has served him well, and they've been excellent. Mason Mount coming back, Fikayo's been excellent. Tammy scoring 26 goals, I think, for us last year at Villa, coming back full of confidence, and actually having the option not to buy players has probably helped Lamps as well. But because he understands them as well, and I done an article before the season started saying what Frank's appointment would do for that academy, because for so many years, I mean, I was the last one to really come through. You get parents. I used to have meetings with parents of an under 14 saying, listen, this is the right club for your boy. Yeah, but he's not going to get a chance in the first team. That the whole football club has lifted because they know if they're good enough under Frank and Jody, they're going to get a chance at the football club. And we're seeing that, and I think it's excellent. It's what the fans want to see. And actually, I think a lot of Chelsea fans would say, we don't want our ban upheld in January. We'd actually keep it as it is.
It's almost like the perception of Chelsea, even from the outside, has flipped a bit, because at the start of the Roman Abramovich era, they were the kind of big spending powerhouse team, Mourinho coming in. Now they have this underdog perception because of the transfer ban, because Frank is an inexperienced manager. There's a whole different vibe around the club, would you say?
Yeah, I don't think just around the club. I think in the football world, I think probably for the first time since I've known it, Chelsea are loved by a lot of teams.
Yeah,
Like
they're
you said,
like that.
yeah,
We said it on the
they
show.
are.
I hate to say it, John. I mean, I'm not a Chelsea fan, but all of a sudden now, I want to watch Chelsea because the brand of football they're playing, there's a core of homegrown players.
Yeah.
They're likeable.
Yeah, they are. It's great to see. It's great to see him getting the opportunity. Billy Gilmore, who's kind of on the fringes as well, coming through. And trust me, Frank will be watching every under-23 game, every under-18 game. They will have their fingers on the pulse and making sure that after an under-23 game, going in that dressing room, telling the boys they're not good enough, or you're with me the next day, you're training with the first team. The impact that has on the academy is incredible.
I just want to touch on something that you said a couple of moments ago, going to the parents of 14-year-olds. As captain of Chelsea Football Club, playing massive matches at the weekends, midweek Champions League, the expectation was you would still meet some parents of kids who were maybe looking at Chelsea as a potential employer.
1,000,000%. You'd get called into regular meetings throughout the year. And actually on a Sunday I'd go down and watch the under-12s, under-8s, under-10s, watch all ages, because I knew a lot of the coaches as well. But just the interest, I think it's important to have that presence there as well. As captain of the club, I just thought it was the right thing to do, and I had an interest in the new generation coming through, really, at all ages. My little girl was there for a few years as well, so we pushed the girls' football on. Me, Lamps, Didier was a big part of that as well. I think when Chelsea's your life and Chelsea's you, it means a little bit more.
N'Golo Kante, I don't know whether you've seen this, John, but he said if he could make one signing to the current team, he'd sign you. I'm not sure if he'd sign you in the present day or the 2004 John Terry, but is that reflective of the fact that maybe they do miss that strong leadership and someone to bolt the defence together?
I think we've probably missed that for a few years, to be honest. But now when I look at the defence, I mean, Caesar's there, who's an unbelievable defender, big character as well. Obviously lost David. But I look at, Kurt and Fikayo, they're young boys learning their trade. I was given time without the spotlight being on me of TV cameras, match of the day, highlighting incidents and stuff like that. So it's difficult for the younger lads, but give them time, they'll be leaders. I mean, Kurt's a big character and a big leader in that dressing room as well. So give him time, I'm sure we'll see characters come out of this current squad.
Might sound a strange question, but are you kind of glad that your career is over in that regard? The 24/7 news cycle now, I mean, listen, they are rewarded handsomely. I'm not going to sit here and say I feel sorry for professional footballers. They are rewarded handsomely for their craft, but the fact that the spotlight is on them with the advent of social media, does part of you kind of not feel sorry for them per se, but are you glad that you weren't in the kind of the top of your career in this current churn of wanting desire to have a story on you?
Yeah, probably. I probably caught the back end of it, to be honest. So I was probably a part of that the last couple of years. But yeah, I feel for him because every mistake's highlighted. I mean, we spoke about it earlier. Look at the England game last night. With the performance and the result last night, should be the main headline, and it's not. It's the negative stuff. And you go, there's so many positives out there that lads are doing away from football as well. There's so many good stories there to be had, but unfortunately in our world we look for the negatives, which is disappointing.
What was your policy in your playing days, to just not read the papers?
I'd read them, yeah. I'd read them, then hope I see the journalist. Or,
on that then, so would you? Would you say, go up to them and have it out and say, give me your line of kind of thinking behind this article?
Well, listen, as a player, after a game whether you've played well or not. You don't need some journalist to tell you and stuff like that. But there was a couple in my kind of time where things got a bit personal, where every week it was an article, he's finished, he needs to retire, his legs are gone. Robbie Savage done one of me, and obviously come for him publicly. But it probably went on for about a year. He had an article in the Mirror. Every week it was about me. So, I just come for him.
And there are people that are making a living of, forget devil's advocate, just talking nonsense but for effect, just to rile people because it's getting clicks on websites and it's getting callers into radio stations.
Well, you look at the guys on Sky Sports and BT. Actually, like I say, if I've made a mistake, but tell me how I've made a mistake or how I can do better. Because these younger players coming through now, if you're going to criticise them on TV, then go into detail. So if I'm sitting at home, I want to know why he's made that mistake. Then why a certain player who's a pundit sees that mistake, or what he feels, or what he would have done in that situation. Actually break it down. Don't just go, he's rubbish, he's made a mistake. Because now I'm sitting there, the other side of it, I go, well, if I'm a supporter, I don't really understand football. Make me understand it. Make me see in the eyes of the defender what you're seeing. I think if they do it constructively, I think it's okay.
The accusation of today's youth is that they can't really take criticism in today's society. You started out all those years back, John. You've come through. You're now a coach. You're seeing the young players of today coming through. Is that the case? I mean, how has the outlook of youngsters coming through today changed today than it was perhaps 15, 20 years ago?
Certainly very different. Yeah, you have to be very careful with what you say and who you say it to and why you say it. I would say it's. I think the big turning point was taking away jobs from the younger players. We used to clean boots, showers, toilets, all of that, have responsibilities with the first team players. Nowadays, in most clubs, the first team players wouldn't know the academy players' names. That's because they've not built up a relationship with them and don't kind of understand what they do around the place. It's pretty much the younger players now, for me, come in, they're away before the first team players, which isn't right. You want them spending hours and hours and hours on that training field to try and become a top player. You talk about Lamps. Lamps have finished training. He'd do some sprints. He'd put a wet jacket on, do some sprints on the football pitch, grab a bag of balls, up he'd go at the other end of the pitch for an hour, practicing his shooting. When he's doing that, you look round, the academy guys are driving out the facility, and you'd be like, that's not right, that. You've got the guy at the top of his game doing extras, and younger players going home at 1:30, 2 o'clock.
You've spoken a lot about how you idolised Marcel Desailly when you kind of came up through the ranks. Do young players today lack the respect that they had 20 years ago for the senior generation of players?
I'm not sure it's lack of respect. I just think they're very confident in themselves, and rightly so, because the ability of some of the players now is phenomenal, really impressive. But there's still the basics that need to be done for me. The basics are making sure you work hard every day, be the best trainer every day, be on time. We're talking about Lamp's fine system earlier and stuff like that. It's things like that are put in place because you want to create a really good culture around the place. So in my generation, if there was a meeting, if Mourinho called a meeting at 10:30, I'd be there at 10:15 because I'd never wanted to be late under Mourinho, never. But all of a sudden, everyone's there at 10:15. If you're there at 10:20, you're seen to be late, but you're 10 minutes early. So you're just creating a culture.
We'll get to Mourinho in a second, and I want real insight in the special one in just a moment. What you said there is interesting as well. You're right about the reporting of the fine system. This past week, it came hot on the heels of the Gareth Southgate episode. Frank Lampard, the fines that are installed at Chelsea Football Club. And it was Robbie that said on our show this past week, whereby, had that been Antonio Conte, and that was released, it would have been reported very differently. It would have been seen as Conte's too strict, he's too harsh on the players are not happy. A source at the football club has said. The difference in how those two have been reported, I find fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably been in place with different figures over the course of the last 20 years. So it's increased slightly from when I was playing on Muscle. But it's
so the salaries, right?
Yeah, a little bit. But it's just Lamb. It's what Lamb's have put in place, and he signed it, and right and all. They have a responsibility to be out there. If it's trained at 10:30, you're out at 10:15. It's the basics of being a top footballer.
Just very quickly before we talk, Jose, I've been told a little tale about when you were a youngster, making coffees or teas. There was this thing that you don't want to be doing that. You don't want to be seen to doing that. You had a different kind of thought process on that, didn't you?
Yeah, I was just telling Jamie actually that my first day at Chelsea as a YTS, I went in, and the older YTS, he said to me, if you get asked to make a cup of tea, make the worst cup of tea you can make, you won't get asked again. So I was sitting there thinking, no, that's not right, is it? So I got asked to make a cup of tea, a coffee for another player, and stirred it loads, put the sugar in, put the right milk in. I wanted to make the best cup of tea, and if I'm a tea maker, then be the best tea maker. If I'm a cleaner, be the best cleaner. And it was I used to do the kit at Chelsea as well, but I used to look at Dennis Wise. How did he put his kit on a match day? It might sound small, but to me...
That's a bit weird, John.
Yeah, I know. Give me time, let me finish. But it was, Dennis Wise used to put his slip on first, his shorts next, but his kit was laid out with his T-shirt first, and all of a sudden it was a small detail before a game. I just wanted Dennis Wise to make sure that his slip was on top. So when he got undressed, the first thing he found on top was the slip. Next thing was the shorts. Next thing was the T-shirt. So it was in order. Other players were different. As kit man, I made sure that every player had their individual bits. No one really knows that, but it's just a small detail where when I was playing, I wanted my boots right, I wanted my kit right, because all I wanted to think about was my football.
Football's a game of transience these days. I mean, players move seemingly every season, every couple of seasons. You're maybe one of the last bastions of real one-club legends. When you look at the numbers, we'll actually read them out, John. It's crazy numbers that you've accumulated. 15 trophies, 5 Premier Leagues, 5 FA Cups, 3 League Cups, Champions League, Europa League, and you played under 11 different permanent managers throughout that time, 6 of whom won trophies at the club.
Yeah.
How, in your words, was the club so successful throughout this kind of perpetual turmoil and revolving door of managers?
I think we had a really good core of players, actually. The spine of the team was very important. Mourinho was a big part of that when he first arrived, kind of set standards of how he wanted things. And that kind of stayed with the club. Even when he wasn't there, that stayed with the club. His winning mentality on a daily basis was massive.
Vialli, of course, gave you your debut. Jose Mourinho came in 2004, and we'll get to Jose in a second. Before all of that, Roman Abramovich came in. Do you remember the day that he bought the club, that you got the call, we've got a new owner? And perhaps give us a bit of an insight. What was your kind of first interaction like with Roman?
Well, it was on a golf course, actually, funny enough.
It's good. It's a good start.
when I found out. And it was just like, well, I didn't know too much about him. So, like you do, straight on Google, you start having a...
You still can't find out too much about him?
But no, just obviously, then a few months later, we was back in pre-season, you end up meeting him, he come down, and just so down to earth.
Really?
Really shy, really humble, honestly, but he just wanted to improve things at the football club. So we'll come down the training ground and go, that's not good enough, that needs to be better. We'd go away a week later, we'd have like a new kitchen in place, a new chef would arrive, and all the improvements he made. So on the field, we was doing everything. So pitches improved, all of that side of it. But even in and around the place, the facilities he built at Cobham's, unbelievable. Knowledgeable
as well, because I often think chairmen, if they don't do this, and here's a little tidbit for free, they should be on Championship Manager, Football Manager, do a couple of hours on that. Was he like that? Did he come to you saying, John, I've watched you, this game I enjoyed? Was he knowledgeable, or was he very standoff?
Knowledgeable on the world of football.
Was he really?
Yeah. I mean, I'm fortunate. I was on one of his yachts one summer, and he invited me to his, and we're sitting there talking about players all over the world. And he mentioned a couple of names. I didn't have a clue what they was.
You just nodded.
But he then got videos up of. He knew every single player would watch constantly because he's continuously looking to improve the Chelsea team. It was incredible. But these players went on to become, big players.
Did he have a favourite player at the club?
Lamps.
Was it really?
Was it really?
Was it?
Yeah. No, I think Lamps, listen, he loved the group, but I think the spine of that team was Peter Cech, myself, Lamps and Didier.
Yeah.
And I think us four was maybe.
Jose came in 2004, and people I think sometimes forget the success he had at Porto. He broke Celtic's hearts in Seville. Martin O'Neill was in charge, the 3-2 win with Porto. He followed that up the next season. He wins the Champions League, Didier Deschamps in Monaco. Then he comes in and he tells us, the watching world, I am the special one. Day one, he says, this is who I am. What was he like? Give us a bit of an insight into the brash, arrogant Jose on day one. Was that the same that he was? Talk us through those kind of first, maybe couple of hours. When he came into the club, what was your interaction like with him? And how did he kind of set the stall out to say, we're going to be a successful football club?
Yeah, well, it was funny because obviously all the players are watching that press conference as well. We're all texting each other, all throwing each other going, oh, we could be in for it here. But met him the complete opposite. And he was like, he just wanted to get all the players on side. So he pulled myself and Lamps individually and then together, and then he pulled all the group together as well. Literally like a full detailed slideshow of how he wanted things, how he wanted his players to be around the place, what he expected us and what he expected from us individually and collectively that season. And again, I went from going back to pre-season or under new managers, just kind of going and playing really, going to train. With him, it was like he had a schedule. He had the first month schedule of going, this day we're doing that. You'll all get that schedule so you know exactly what you're doing. Tell your wives, tell your kids, so you can plan your schedule.
A month planned out in advance.
A month planned out, but then you break it down. He knew what he was doing for the next 3 months, you know, from a footballing point of view. But day one of pre-season, we're probably a generation where you go in and get your trainers on and run around the pitch. Day one, he was like, no trainers, everyone put your boots on. I was like, what's this about? He's going, no one runs. We won't do any running. Everyone put your football boots on. And his fitness coach had the mindset of, you never see a pianist running around the piano. You see a pianist practicing on the piano. And it was day one, it just had a big impact on the group where something was different, something was going to be special.
How quickly did he convince you that you would win the league that season?
Oh, day one. Day one.
Day one.
I promise you.
You were instilled with a belief that you would be title winners that day, first day that he was.
The first slideshow was.
The first slideshow.
We are champions.
Yeah, pretty much. Was a picture of the trophy.
Was it?
And you're
really?
not going anywhere further than that. That image stays with you the whole season. That's what we're going to do this year. And it was like, again, no manager had ever done that before. And then you break it down. This is what we need to do to then go and achieve that. He was doing what managers are doing today 20 years ago. Honestly, incredible.
Give us an insight into those training sessions, John. What was it about Jose? Because I think it was Mikel Silvestri joined us on this show, and he was travelling with Manchester United. This is a couple of seasons ago, and he said, and I'm not saying anything he hasn't said, that day one, defensive shape. That was the thing. Over in LA, it was defensive, it was defensive, it was defensive. Was that the case back in 2004, those kind of sessions? What was the emphasis on?
Pretty much on everything. I wouldn't just say defensively. We was very well organised defensively, and we worked on that. But also the attacking side of it. So we had people like Didier, Rob, and Duff, but we also done a lot of attacking drills as well. So we had a good balance. The one thing he demanded from those two wide players, from whether that be Joe Cole, Duff, or Robin, that they track back and work hard for the team. So he used to have murders with the players on a daily basis, on training, after games, half time, for them to track back and help the team. Because they can do that going forward, but you don't see many players doing that going backwards.
That 04-05 side, we talk about great Premier League sides from different eras, recently on the Man City, a couple of Manchester United's incarnations as well. You've got Arsenal's Invincibles. Did that Chelsea side, does it get enough credit for you? Was it as good? Was it the equal of those teams?
100% for me. I think we had a bit of everything. We had a bit of presence. We had some flair in the side. Very solid, some big personalities, some big characters, and the best manager for me in world football. So, yeah.
Give us an insight in Jose, John. Was there a match? Is there a week or a moment where it stuck with you, where you just look back on it now and think, that is utter genius? I know Roy Keane has been, quoted in the last week or so. He says that Fergie, and he also said Brian Clough as well. Oh, what's he going to say here? And then he said they got it absolutely spot on all the time. Is there a match, any moment that you can maybe share with us where you think, yes, that stands out to me, Jose there, it was like standing applaud that man?
Pretty much, and no word of a lie, pretty much every game. Honestly, we was losing 1-0 at Stamford Bridge, which was unheard of. We had that record at Stamford Bridge for so many years. And we're walking down the tunnel going, it's going to go off here. He's going to go berserk. Come in the tunnel, and it's the calmest he's ever been. We was woeful the first half, honestly, we was terrible. Come in, he just knelt down, started like talking about formation. Listen, don't panic, we've not been great. This is what we'll do, we're going to win the game 3-1 if you do this. So go and pressurise him, let the other centre-half have the ball. He's no good on the ball. We worked on it yesterday, we've not done it. And it was so calm, and it was like, we went out there, we battered them, we won the game 3-1. And there was just moments like that in foot where you go, he could have easily gone the other way, but didn't, and just knew when to go which way and the other way, and he had it to a T.
Overall, John, was he more likely to go the hairdryer teacup route, or was it that calm exterior? If you had to kind of push,
he would go more hairdryer stuff.
He would,
yeah, for sure. But he also had the other bit, because I think if you like that all the time, you can't then go to the other place. If you fluctuate between the two, I think it's a good place to be, and he had it.
What was it like when he returned to the club? I think 6 years after he left his first spell, he came back in 2013. What was that like? And as a shot in the arm for the Chelsea team, what kind of effect did it have?
Well, for me in particular as well, it was so Rafa had just been in charge. I was out the team. He'd come out publicly, Rafa, and saying my kind of legs have gone up, finished, and told the club pretty much that as well, that my time's up at the club. I was in Portugal at the time, in having dinner with my wife and my kids, and I get a phone call from Mourinho. I'm taking over. I'm back in charge. It's going to be announced. You're my captain. I love you. I need you to be on it. And I was like that at dinner. I was having a glass of wine, just about to order dessert. I was like that. No wine, no dessert. I want water. I was up the following morning doing 2-3 sessions a day, making sure that when I went back, but he made me feel, I went from probably being lost in that year under Rafa to them knowing that I had the trust of the manager.
And that extended your career by 4 years.
1,000,000%. He was my career. I owe him so much, honestly. What he done for me personally, give me the kind of authorization to kind of lead the way I wanted to lead on the pitch, and replicated the way he was in the dressing room and around the place. It was excellent for me.
And he would be texting you random times. You'd be out shopping with the missus or sat in the bath or whatever else you were doing, and you get a text from him.
You'd be sitting there watching TV going, oh, you're watching this, it's brilliant. It might be a comedy sketch on TV or something. You'd be like, yeah, brilliant. But you're having kind of a two-way conversation, and you go back, and then it just stops. That's it. And you go, he's not replied. What have I done? Go in the following morning, he don't speak to you. And you're like, oh, did I upset him? Or so you check your messages again, and then you come in the next day, puts his arm around you. How was last night? How's Tony and the kids? All good. How's their football? Come and sit with you at breakfast. 2 days later, he won't acknowledge you. Honestly, incredible. But again, what he done as an individual, going, I need to go and impress him every single day. And he just knew how to press my buttons, Lamps' buttons. And I think what he had with that is knowing that if he'd done that with me, Lamps, Didier, Peter Cech, Ash, Michael Ballack, Michael Essien, the big character, if he'd done that with us and we was out every single day, the other players who wasn't playing every week, they had one place to go, and that was to match our standards on a daily basis. And they had to do that, which then, you drive and push people on. So you could sign any defender, but if he comes in, he don't work as hard as me and Carvalho, you're not playing.
But just on that though, John, because accusation that has been levelled against Jose is that because you don't know quite ever where you stand, and you're right to say he'll message you, how's the kids? Next day, he's blanking you. With that though, mentally, if you're not robust, I would imagine that could be a bloody nightmare to deal with that. And, you know, the accusation has said that he's 3-year cycles, the siege mentality, what he demands of you mentally will ensure that the cycle comes to a kind of more natural end. Is that fair?
No, I don't think it's fair. That's just the way he is. He's a winner. And pretty much, if that's a small-sided game, he wants the players to be out throwing themselves in front of balls, getting injured in training if you have to. And kind of that winning mentality is a must, whether it's a small-sided game or possession. He wants players out every single day. And in my generation there, I see people like Salah, Kevin De Bruyne kind of come through and not being able to match his standards at the time. Now, they was very talented, but very young individuals as well. But Mourinho didn't have time to put them in the team or take out a Duff or a Robin, because we was winning every single week and his job's on the line. So, like I said before, if you come in and you're 10-20% below the standard of Duff and Robin, who are scoring 20 goals a season each, you're not going to make that team. No chance. So fair play to them. They've gone away elsewhere and proved they're good enough. But at that present time at that football club, they wasn't good enough for Chelsea.
Probably only a matter of time before he returns to management. You're obviously embarking on your managerial career. Are you still in touch with Jose?
Still in touch with him. Often get a message or a phone call kind of out of the blue. But like I say, just very thankful really that still can kind of lean on him for certain things as well. So he's like that with a lot of the players and keeps in touch with everyone.
Of all the Chelsea managers, again, this is our perspective looking in from the outside, and everyone was fascinated with the kind of toings and froings in the club. It was probably Carlo Ancelotti who we felt as observers was the hardest done by in terms of the way he left the club.
Yeah.
Is that a view you share?
Yeah, probably all the players and the supporters probably feel that way as well after winning the double. And then getting sacked the way he did as well was probably unfair. And as players, we felt responsible for that actually, because we love Carlo and love the way he adapted to English football. And again, you talk about top managers. He was up there with Mourinho. You know.
And he had that aura, did he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, but he had a really good way about him as well. That off the field, he had Ray Wilkins around him as well. Two of the nicest fellas ever. And just tactically, he was excellent. But the way he'd coached before in Italy, he kind of come to England going, we do 40, 50 minutes of tactical work every day, and it was, we don't really do that. And he adapted.
Did he?
You know, he didn't say, no, this is my way and this is how we're doing it. He listened to me, Frank and Didier, and we adapted slightly in our routine. And he was very good at that. You could go to him with absolutely anything, and that's an art in itself, I think, as well.
You mentioned that he adapted. Again, an observer looking in. I always felt Andre Villas-Boas and Luis Felipe Scolari. It was, again, forgive me if I'm wrong, it seemed it was more revolution than evolution with the both of those. I remember you, I think his first game, Andre Villas-Boas, you're defending your halfway line. And I was watching it, that's not playing to John's strengths at all. And they both, put paid to their chances of being there a long time. Was that the case? Did they maybe fail to adapt and try to push things, maybe their agenda, too quickly at the football club?
Well, I think so. I think people forget as well that a lot of players in that time when Andre was in charge, he was the analysis.
He was, yeah.
The kind of video analysis, he'd do scouting for the opposition, and you'd kind of see him kind of 2-3 days a week around the place. All of a sudden, he then becomes manager. It's very difficult for the players who are there. If it was probably a different group of players, he might have settled a little bit quicker, but like all players, you judge people of how you see things, and some of the players kind of didn't enjoy that spell, but yeah, probably because that certainly didn't play to my strengths, playing a high line. No. I'd address that to him, that if one goes over the top, I'm struggling to get back there, but that's the way he wanted to play, and we went with it, and it goes back to that. Mourinho is a certain way, and he will push and push and push and push. That's the way he is, and that's the way he plays, that's the way that's made him successful.
In the Premier League, Chelsea, under your time at Chelsea, probably had a group of probably the strongest personalities of any side, and a lot was written about player power. A lot was written about this idea that a manager would quote unquote lose the dressing room. Were these realities for you, or was it simply a media kind of narrative that didn't really tally with what you were experiencing?
No, it certainly didn't tally with how it was perceived, for sure. We had big characters, undoubtedly. But I think within that group as well, we was fair and honest with each other. So before you kind of went complaining to it, we would be very harsh on each other as well. So before you start pointing the finger at managers, it was pretty much look at yourself and have a look at your teammates and how can we get better to improve things. And like I say, under Carlo, we felt responsible as players that we didn't probably achieve what we should have done after that very good season. So as players, you take responsibility. We never kind of shied away from that as a group. But yeah, the player power stuff about being in direct contact with owners and making decisions, that was nonsense.
Jose came back, of course. Robbie's rightly pointed out 6 years later. Had he changed? They often say Fergie mellowed as he got older. Was there any one discernible change where you thought, this is different?
No, not really. Still very much at it. And even after the conversation you having me in Portugal, so day one of pre-season, we're starting a session and me and Gary Cahill on the ball. We kept giving the ball away in midfield. He stopped the session going, you two have been rubbish, basically, with a few other words. You two have been rubbish. If I have to go and spend 50 million each on 2 centre-halves, I will do. If you two don't like it, this is day one of pre-season. And me and Gaz looked at each other and like, wow, give it away again. Like 5 minutes later, stop the session. Like he's looking at us going, man, we just signed Fabregas, Diego Costa. But just what that done for me and Gaz was like, we didn't need livening up, but all of a sudden we set the tone of that session. Yeah. So now we're going around, me and Gaz are smashing everyone, flying into tackles. It's all become a little bit aggressive. And maybe Jose being the way he was, probably come back going, these lot think they've made it, they're too comfortable in their role. And it just, the level of training went from there up to there again. And that's just by pushing buttons. But again, at the end of that session, he come and put his arm around me and went, that's why you're my captain. Brilliant. And that just lifted me. It still gives me like goosebumps now sitting here.
How do the two sides that won the title under Jose, you spoke about Diego Costa, Eden Hazard coming in as well, Cesc, it was an unbelievable side as well. How did it compare to the first Chelsea side, 04-05, that did the double?
Yeah, probably slightly more technical. Cesc come in was excellent. Diego was a complete handful, wasn't he? A nightmare to play and train against.
On and off the field, I'm sure.
But a really good lad. We had a really good group. I think that first year, 2004-05, is the best for me. But I look at that team. That was some of the football we played. I don't know if you remember the goal at Burnley.
Oh,
Cesc ran the corner to Schürrle. Yeah, unbelievable football. And some of the passes that he had a relationship with Diego that every time he got it, Diego would just be on his bike. And when you're in training, you pretty much know what's coming. So the ball from Cesc is coming without looking around the corner. You still can't stop it.
We've had a ton of questions from our listeners and for people on social media as well, John. We're going to get to some of these now. Of all the trophies you won, 15 of them in total, which one stands out above all the others?
Champions League, for sure. People ask me, what's the best game I've been involved, I've not been involved, whatever you want to say, full kit and everything. I was involved.
I was going to touch on that, John. That's going to be one of the big regrets, is it?
Like, for me, that's still the best night ever.
Is that semi against Barca at the Nou Camp the craziest 90 minutes of football you've ever...
Yeah, incredible, wasn't it? Yeah.
Experienced? That game, you could watch that 100 times and wonder how Chelsea
it was an
got
uncomfortable 45 minutes in that dressing room, I tell you.
Yeah, I was going to say, for you,
Yeah.
Fernando galloping, I think Gary Neville lost the plot when he scored that.
Was the sending off fair, in your opinion?
Yeah, looking back, yeah.
Yeah. It was just so caught up in the moment of pressure that they were imposing.
I don't know if people remember that the home game, he actually coming into the game, he had a dead leg, I think, on the game before that, coming into, and he was doubtful for that game. So he went to go past me in the home leg, and I'd done him on the top of his leg, just to let him know that how's your leg kind of thing, yeah. And ref didn't see it, wave play on, and I thought I'd get away with it again in that early on in the game. Didn't, stupid really, but you know.
The 09 game, was that among the most heartbreaking?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. Honestly, if it comes on TV, I still can't watch it. I've not watched the game back at all.
I've
seen the penalty incidents and stuff, but yeah, heartbreaking. Because
VAR would have a field day with that game today.
Yeah, probably, yeah, or maybe not. But I look at that and go, Barcelona were the best team in the world for me. In my generation of playing, some of the football and the individuals they had, we outplayed Barcelona over them two legs. And that just goes to show how hard it is to win the Champions League. We had the Moscow, obviously, where we lost. I look at that and go, actually come away from that game thinking that could be it. That could be my last chance there. And then you go and win it in Munich.
Wow. Where Chelsea were not, they were not favoured.
No. It wasn't great. You look at the Napoli game, was favourites to get knocked out of that. And then me, Ivanovic, Didier and Frankel scored in the home leg and won 4-1 after extra time. Just it was meant to be. So you need an awful lot of luck along the way and then big comps.
I hate to do this to you, John. 2008, when you look back on that night, how did you reconcile with it? Do you still play it back? This will chime with a lot of people. Whenever we've made a mistake on air or anything that I've done, I cringe. I'm like, and I replay it back. Do you do that, or do you compartmentalise it in a different way?
No, I completely think about it all the time. It still wakes me up of a night. I wake up randomly, weekly, I'd say, kind of bang, it's there, like 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. Yeah, it's a hard one. It's something I'll never forget. But like I'm saying, even though I wasn't playing in Munich, that's kind of outweighs the disappointment of that. So for any kind of young kids or anyone playing, there will be disappointments along the way. That's my biggest by far. But then there's a lot of upsides in it as
This will be a bit of a weird question. I put this to Robbie a little earlier. Whenever we make mistakes in every walk of life, you'll try and correct them. If you're on the golf course and you try and hit a fade and you duff it, you'll hit a fade the next day. First day back at pre-season, did you put that ball on the penalty spot and stick it in the corner where you were planning to go?
No, I didn't. It's a bizarre one because people will forget 3 days later we played at Wembley against America. We won the game 1-0. I scored from a header from the edge of the box. And after the game, honestly, I just burst into tears going, I would have swapped that goal for that. How can I score from there and not there with my head and blah, blah. So it goes for it. Still, honestly, still makes me emotional today. But I'd taken a penalty in the Euros for England and scored. I should have taken one in 2006.
Yeah.
Didn't. But I was always very confident. After that, I was shot to bits confident-wise for taking penalties. So you talk about Lamps and then 4 players having that responsibility, and that's a big pressure to
Did
deal
you
with,
insist on being number 5?
No, Kalou was supposed to be number 5, so I was always number 6 and Elka number 7. So Kalou was there, and for some reason or not, he, I still don't know why. We were all kind of looking long, and it's like, if no one else is going, then I'll go.
So Kalou didn't step forward?
No, but he was probably one of the best penalty takers. It wasn't that he didn't want to. He didn't want to step forward because I was there, and so it was. Listen, like I said before, it wasn't meant to be. It's part of my journey.
Yeah,
it's the biggest disappointment. Honestly, I can't even go into detail how bad and how much it affected me, and still does. But that Munich surpasses that by far.
And in terms of the best player from your first Premier League title in 2005, to your last one in 2007, who was the best player, present company excluded, who ever put on a Chelsea shirt?
Lamps.
Was it really?
Yeah, without a doubt, honestly. There's been some exceptions. If you look technically and everything, Eden's probably that one who's above everyone else. The ability he had was phenomenal. But when I look at Frank and go, on a yearly basis, on a daily basis, he was the best trainer. I tried to be the best trainer, and I gave my everything. Lamps would always run further than you, would work harder than you, but he was always my go-to as a player. So if ever there was a moment in a game or train, I'd look at him and there he'd be flying about, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm with you. You're my mate. I'm with you. You know, and he would have that effect, and that would be infectious in players. And again, kind of what that done to the group as well was amazing. So I look at that, and I'm not just saying it. He was the most determined and hard-working player I've come across with ability as well. Let's not forget the ability he had.
Yeah, we've had Harry Redknapp sat on that very chair, of course, the uncle of Frank, and he talks about Frank's father being exactly the same, that he was always accused of being slow, and he said he'd have the cones out and he'd be out, rain or shine, working on getting his speed up, and he did tell us a story when he was at West Ham where Frank was at the far end, and yet he phoned security. Someone's jumped over the fence, and he saw these two security guards running out, and it was Frank. Sleep was coming down, and there was Frank just working on his game. I mean, that appetite to be the very best, I mean, that is an absolute credit to himself. And I guess that's for any youngster to be the best. You've got to put in the yards.
A great credit and example to every young player, as you're saying as well. And we had it, so after training he would do his shooting, but take a bag of balls, and it was like, it wasn't going to shoot and try and put it in the top corner. Lamps was like game mode, game mentality, game speed. And if you're not going to come and do that with him, and you're going to try and put it in the top corner, then go away, go down the other end and do your shooting. Same with his acceleration drills as well. We'd do it, and players would come there and go, what are you doing? If there wasn't up to his standard, he'd send them away. This is the standard. But even after games, Lamps used to have conversations with his dad on the phone. He'd just scored 2 goals, and you hear his dad go, you should have scored 3. And then to have an argument, yeah, but I tried. But they must have just pushed each other constantly. You know, it's incredible. And now where he is today.
The hardest player to defend against in your entire career? Or the opponent you found the hardest?
In the Premier League, Henry for me.
Really?
Yeah. Overall, I think I look at Ronaldinho and Messi being the two that really stand out for me. But on a weekly basis, Henry.
Why Henry?
Just his pace was frightening. But also on the back of that, he had everything. Could score with his right foot, left foot header, his movement. You know, you couldn't give him an ounce. You know, you'd try and be physical against him. He'd be physical back. He'd knock it past you, try and run around the outside of you. He could do absolutely everything. And he was probably the most fearful that I know. I was never really worried going. He's always got nervous, but never worried. He was one player that worried me.
A couple of strikers who failed to really kind of set Stamford Bridge alight. Andrei Shevchenko, a lot of kind of fanfare. I mean, for what he did at AC Milan when he arrived. Fernando Torres, perhaps a little harsh. He did go on and win the Champions League, of course. But those two, why didn't they just quite click at Chelsea, John?
I'm not too sure. They didn't really hit the ground running when they arrived. And again, big pressure, big money signings, come from big football clubs. Just didn't happen. Like it hasn't for many strikers at the club. There's been a lot of big strikers kind of come in. It's difficult when you're following people like Dids and you've got to shift Dids out the team. How do you get a run in the team when, you know, you might get one game, if you don't score, you're out for 4 or 5. It's difficult to then get that rhythm as well, which people tend to forget as well.
For club and country, who was the centre-back partner that you had the best understanding with? Who was your favourite partner to play with?
I love Carvalho. Yeah, Ricky. Just as characters, as players, I spent the whole game telling him to come back because he'd go on these bursting runs and leave me stranded at the back. I'm thinking, I need your pace back. You need to come back. But just a brilliant lad. We had a really good relation. Even Gaz Cahill late on when we played together, because he got on so well off the field, I knew exactly what he was doing, and vice versa. But me and Ricky in them first 3 years, definitely.
One thing I've deduced from you, John, over the course of the last 55 minutes or so is that you stand up, you take responsibility. You are, by the very definition, a leader. The accusation today is that you look across, not just the big clubs, a lot of the kind of smaller clubs trying to make their way in the game, not enough leaders. Do you see that? Is that lazy from us to throw that accusation out there?
I think it's a dying breed, definitely. But again, I think that comes with, you know, being like that on a daily basis. I just don't think on a daily basis, players care enough. And like I say before, whether it's a small-sided game or a head tennis tournament or a game of two-touch, I want to win at all costs. If I'm playing my kids at table tennis, I want to win. My wife goes mad at me. You've got to let them win. I go, no. You know. But when they beat me, they know that they've beaten me, and you know they've got to work hard to go and beat me. If they want to beat me at poor table tennis, it's going to be a tough game.
Yeah.
You know. I just think.
Are you doing the Earl Woods effect? Are you grooming them to become sports stars?
My little boy's a decent golfer. My little girl, she's very keen on football and spent 3 years at Chelsea. She's pulled away from football a little bit. She's maturing a little bit. They're 13 now, so she's pulled away. But yeah, going back to the original bit, I just don't think they're at it every single day. And I was probably the least talented within that group of players, but I was the best trainer, or up there with the best trainers, or 100% every single day. And I think if you've got that, it's a good foundation.
How do you and Dean, and I'm talking Villa now, if you see that and you can understand that, look at them, not quite, is it a case of drilling it into them? How do you make it so that is cognitive for them, that they are getting that? Can you do that?
I mean, you try to, but again, you look at individuals, and being a good captain, I think you need to know individuals, the one you can scream and shout at, the ones you need to put an arm around, pretty much like Mourinho did with me. He knew that he could scream and shout at me, and in front of everyone or individually, he'd get the best out of me. There was others that he probably couldn't and didn't, you know. But I think when we look, I mean, Eden Hazard's the prime example of that. He was the worst trainer.
Was he really?
Would have his laces undone, really relaxed, didn't want to get injured during the week, didn't want to push, but give him the ball and he'll come alive. So if he's on your team, you know you have to sacrifice. You probably have to work a little bit harder, but you know going forward he's going to produce you 20, 25 goals a season. And in the games as players, you accept that because he was so good. You know, him and Mourinho would have discussions on a daily basis. You need to work harder, and he'd go, boss, give me the ball Saturday, I'll score 3 goals. You know, that's his answer, but he can back it up the weekend as well. So if you're a manager, you've got someone like him that doesn't need to be out every single day, then you need to find that balance, don't you?
We're into the final 5 minutes in conversation with John Terry. Questions still pouring in for you, John. And I'm conscious we'll probably try and rattle through as many as we possibly can. I've got to do this. I'm a proud Scot. John McGinn. He's the future of Scottish football, is he not?
Unbelievable, John McGinn.
He's a player, isn't he?
It's a shame they've not got a few more.
Yeah. I wish he was English.
Should be able to clone him.
He's a player.
Honestly, he's been incredible. It's been he's one of them that you love to coach and work with, because he's brilliant in team meetings. He's pretty much old school, where, you know, if he's made a mistake in a team meeting, before the meeting starts, he'll be like, sorry lads, that's me. You know, put his hand up, and he's just got a really good way about him. But unbelievable player. I mean, people talk about his physical status and the way he gets about the park, but technically, superb. Great strike, both feet, can score with both feet, headers. He's been vital for us this year.
James, one of our listeners, is asking, what's the most intimidating away ground in European and international football that you've played in?
Probably Anfield. I think a few big occasions there, and the Champions League nights.
Did it cross the line, John?
Can't believe you even asked that. Definitely not.
Anfield, though. I mean, I've had the pleasure of Anfield. It is.
Yeah, it's goosebumps. You have to respect. I mean, their fans are incredible, aren't they? You know, I took a lot of stick there personally over the years, well, but you kind of, you do respect what they are as a football club and the way they get behind their team.
Is this their year?
I think it has to be. I think the result of the weekend pretty much cemented that. I think it was a penalty early on for Man City, but
Are they? And this is, I appreciate we compare and contrast eras and teams, but are what Liverpool and City? What was it? City won their last 14 last season. Liverpool 13. Liverpool have carried that on to this campaign. 11 wins and a draw from their 12. Have they raised the bar now to levels that we haven't seen in English football?
Yeah, I think they've both done that. Yeah, and I think when you got two teams doing that, we had that with Man United constantly when Mourinho first arrived. You know, knowing that you had to win, you couldn't drop points. If you're that one team, you can maybe afford to slip up. You're a little bit relaxed. Where the both of them are pushing each other, I think it's great for English football. But two great managers, two really, really good teams with superb individuals.
And I want to ask about Brendan Rodgers. I'm his biggest fan. I'm sorting out a fan club over in this part of the way, because the amount of arguments I've had with Liverpool fans who, it was Suarez, it was nonsense. It was he that gave Raheem Sterling at 17 the chance. And I always remember the performance, the first half performance against Liverpool at Anfield. They steamrolled them, so they did. How good's Brendan? And is he Leicester, not being disrespectful to Leicester, a big club and they're going places, but is he destined for another big job?
Yeah, 100%. You know, he's doing great at Leicester. I'm sure he's got targets to go and achieve at Leicester. But a little insight, when Mourinho was in charge, Brendan would be youth team manager at the time. He used to constantly come across, would speak Spanish and Portuguese, very fluent, would come in and have a really good rapport with the players. But Mourinho would let him in and kind of let him observe and get him really involved. But even a spell, I wasn't scoring. I felt being a defender was a big part of my game as well. I think I hadn't scored in nine games, which seems bizarre. But Brendan pulled me, and it probably wasn't having my best games either. Pulled me. He had a video for me, a 3-minute video. I was a first team player. He was youth team manager. He pulled me, went, come into the office. He was like, I've seen you around the place, and you know, he said, who motivates the motivator? He said, this is what I'm here for. Have a look at this. All my goals that I'd scored throughout my Chelsea career, tackles, blocks, he's going, don't you ever forget how good you are. And you know what? He just was like, wow, that's powerful, that. And funny enough, I scored the next game and kind of dedicated it to him. But little details like that, you go back in 2000, 2004, 5, we're talking 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's like, that's impressive from him. But he was excellent.
You've spoken about kind of a lot of this conversation is centered on man management and how you deal with players and how you lead players. How important is philosophy, overarching football philosophy? Have you got one of your own? And you look at Guardiola, you look at Jurgen Klopp and the kind of high press and the high energy that Liverpool play with. It seems like in the modern day, a manager has to come with a kind of brand of playing football.
Yeah, I think as well, if you're a young manager going to speak to an owner as well, I think they'd be wanting that presentation. It's kind of all moved on, so you have to be really prepared as well, which I am. I've got my own style of how I want to play, but as well individually as well. You look at Liverpool. So we played Liverpool a couple of weeks ago, and their front three are pressing. We clip it into our fullback over Sané's head. I think it was in about the 8th minute. If you get a chance, have a look at the way he turns and sprints and gets on the toes of our fullback. And you're talking. Sterling's the same as well at Man City. You're talking about the players at the top of their game, working their socks off for their team, knowing what role they play defensively and offensively. And I think they're clearly set up of how they want to play. They know exactly what they're doing. And I think that's vital as well. I think everyone gets obsessed with want to play out from the back. There's still nothing wrong with a 50-yard ball into the striker and bypassing 7 players and then playing from there.
This is added on time, John, and I promise I'm going to wrap this up in the next minute or two. The phone, does it ring from chairman that say, John, you fancy a gig here?
Not yet. I'm happy. I've just signed a new contract at Villa, so I'm happy. I'm really glad what I've done, actually, of coming, learning under someone like Dean. And he's such a big club in Aston Villa, and we're back in the Premier League. So for me, when the time's right, clearly I want to be a manager. Villa know that, and Dean knows that as well. But honestly, I'm thoroughly enjoying learning and watching and seeing how he works on a daily basis. But at the same time, having conversations with Brendan, I'm planning to go to the training ground to watch them.
He let you?
Yeah.
Obviously, you're assistant manager of Aston Villa, but Brendan would open up the door and say, come on in, John.
Obviously not the day before we play them, but
No, sure.
But yeah, you go back to all the managers. I mean, I spoke to Antonio and Carlo. You know, they're very open for me to go over and kind of watch them for a couple of days when I get a chance as well. And I think as a coach, you always want to adapt and try new training sessions and see what the next thing is. So how can you kind of implement that in?
And what is your style? And again, coming back to Brendan, he was here quite recently, and he said that he talked eloquently about Jose. He said the best piece of advice he was ever given was from Fergie, who said, Brendan, as soon as you can get your coaching staff to think and see the game as you do and take a step back, I promise you'll learn things in a week that you never dare dream of. And he said it's the best thing he's done. He did it in his final season at Celtic. I would imagine he's now doing it at Leicester. Is that the case with Dean? Is he quite standoffish and you're in with the players?
I think a real good balance, actually, and Dean's got a really good relationship with Sir Alex Ferguson as well, so I'm sure he's had that same conversation. But I think as well, when you get given the manager's job, it's like, I need to control everything, and that's the really good ones, actually. I think the older generation of managers actually take a back seat and kind of watch from a distance, and sometimes you can get a better perspective, can't you, of what's going on, because sometimes I think when you're involved in that, if you trust and employ your coaches in the right way and trust what they're doing, you can afford to do that and step back.
John, I think we need to.
Yeah,
we
I
need
was
to
going to
wrap
say,
up.
I'm getting a lot of people looking at me. John is a very busy boy today. The Dubai Fitness Challenge, and we'll just maybe take it full circle and finish there. Dubai Fitness Challenge is now into its third year. The initiative, as Robbie said at the start, 30 minutes for 30 days. I guess the message, and you're the embodiment of it as a professional athlete, do that every day. Try and build that into your kind of daily life and live an active and healthy lifestyle.
Well, that's the important thing, isn't it? I think it's small details as well where you can have an impact. You know, if there's a lift, can you go down the stairs? Can you come up the stairs? It's small details. So I'm sure throughout the day there's 30 minutes of exercise that everyone can get in, but not just the parents as well. I think the kids as well. Get the kids actively involved, get them off their computers and working for 30 minutes. I think, you know, setting generations, and it's not only our generation, we want to, you know, insert a mindset into the next.
And I've got to ask as well, John, how is the golf game?
Okay, I'm not playing as much though now. I've not got enough time on my hands now. I'm a coach.
Not.
Yeah.
Are you going to get a round in here?
I'm not, unfortunately. I'm going to enjoy the sun, I think.
Well, listen, John, it's been an absolute pleasure for us to have you in. Thank you so much. I mean, you've spared an hour and 5 minutes. I know an awful lot of love that's coming through on our Facebook page. Bless you. Good luck for the rest of the season. Good luck to Aston Villa. And tell John I'm asking for it.
I will do.
Good
Pleasure,
stuff.
guys. Thanks
John
very much.
Terry, absolute
Thanks.
legend, former Chelsea, former England captain, now assistant boss at Aston Villa. We thank John. And this interview you've been watching, I hope you've enjoyed it. It will be coming to you again on radio, off script, from 7 p.m. on Sunday. From all of us here, have yourselves a wonderful Friday afternoon. Goodbye.